Hello, welcome to today's episode of Juicing the Numbers, a statistics and sports podcast. I'm your host, Joshua Tracy.
And I'm Corwin Heller.
Corwin Heller, fellow co-host, fellow host of the show. Just to re-up on that one.
We did that bit already.
Just revisiting callbacks. Today, we're recording this Friday, January 3rd, 2020. Still a weird thing to say. And we're going to be talking about the NFL All-Pro teams. They just got announced, I believe, today. And we're going to go through some of the voting results, some controversies, and just a general walkthrough of some other positions to see who got in, who got out, and the whatnot. Sound good?
Absolutely.
Oh, all right. Let's start at the top. Offense, quarterback, no fucking surprise. Lamar Jackson from Baltimore. He received 47 out of 50 votes. Russell Wilson received the remaining 3.
Yeah, I don't know how you can even argue that this is anyone but Lamar Jackson. Like, if this isn't unanimous, I would be annoyed. But the fact that, I mean, I know it won't be unanimous because these things almost never happen that way. But, I mean, damn, he has just been so far and above the best quarterback in the NFL this year.
Oh, yes. I was actually going to ask if you were surprised that there was no one else getting votes. Like, are you surprised that Russell Wilson is the only other person who got votes?
I haven't looked at the vote breakdown yet. I will bring that up right here.
Yeah, it was 47-3.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of weird. Like 6% of the vote, like you think is not that big of a deal, but I don't know how you could look at what Russell Wilson did this season and what Lamar Jackson did this season and be like, yeah, Russ was better. Nah, he's so much better. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
But that's the way the world works, man.
I guess that is the way the cookie crumbles.
Can't get too upset about it.
No. Although we can get upset about well, I guess not what happened next, but what happens following this. Running backs. The first team All-Pro running back this year was Christian McCaffrey of Carolina with 27 votes, followed by followed by Derrick Henry of Tennessee with 20, Nick Chubb of Cleveland with 2, and Dalvin Cook of Minnesota with 1. Again, this seems like a no shit category with Christian McCaffrey taking it. I'm actually surprised he only took it by 7 more votes than Derrick Henry, but yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel like I'm a little more torn on this one just because yes, Christian McCaffrey has just the eye test wise has looked like the best non-quarterback in the NFL this season. He's just been so good with the ball in his hands and just being able to produce on an offense that without Cam Newton by all means should have faltered. But Derrick Henry leading the league in rushing yards just had so many games this season where he just completely took over and just was unstoppable. This was finally his, full breakout year. I get why you would be more split on this one. I could see why someone might put Dalvin Cook there. I'm less, in agreement on Nick Chubb getting some votes. I just don't know how you could put him over McCaffrey, Henry, and Dalvin Cook.
Yeah, Nick Chubb. If you switch Chubb and Cook, granted you're switching between 2 votes and 1 vote, so it's not huge. But still, just like their placement, I guess, does bother me because Chubb's had a great season. I don't know. Dalvin Cook just had a better one, but nothing too controversial here, and there will be nothing too controversial in our next one. The tight end to get the first team All-Pro nod is George Kittle of San Francisco. He received 33 votes. Travis Kelce of Kansas City received the other 17. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Travis Kelce had a great season. George Kittle had a spectacular season. All around the best tight end in football this year. Was an absolute monster when he was healthy. Did deal with some injuries, but I definitely don't think that should have taken away from what he was able to do this season. It's crazy how in that offense in San Francisco, I was about to say that offense in the 49ers, but me with words. That offense in San Francisco with so many young receivers and bringing in Emmanuel Sanders, George Kittle has just been this like beacon of absolute sureness, if that makes any sense.
Oh yeah, very sure-handed, sure in talent. Yeah,
It's
he's been great.
I don't want to say he's like Gronk because Gronk is just on a whole nother level than these guys when he was at his peak, but George Kittle is beginning to look like what Gronk was when he was in New England.
Not that the Ravens needed any more representation on this list, but what do you think about Mark Andrews not getting any votes here?
Mark Andrews,
Oh,
absolutely. He was phenomenal. He's definitely someone I will vote for in the Pro Bowl, but I just don't know how I could argue putting him ahead of Travis Kelce and George Kittle. And that's what I think makes the All-Pro so special, is you can have a great season, but the All-Pro is the penultimate player, well, not the penultimate, the ultimate player at that position for that season. And for a lot of positions this year, there really shouldn't have been so much debate. Just George Kittle was just so far and away the best tight end this year. I just don't know how you could put Travis Kelce and especially Mark Andrews ahead of him.
So I was curious about how Mark Andrews compared to Travis Kelce this year, because I didn't hear as much about Travis Kelce this year as I feel like I have previously, especially like the last two seasons. So just yards and touchdowns. I'll just do those two things. This year, Mark Andrews, 852 yards on 64 receptions for 10 touchdowns, or with 10 touchdowns. Travis Kelce had 1,229 yards on 97 receptions with 5 touchdowns. And that's a lot. That's so many. That's so much of everything. Touchdowns, obviously one less, but like still, fuck. God damn. And then what's surprising is George Kittle, 1,053 yards on 85 receptions with 5 touchdowns. So, I mean, obviously he was asked to do different things, and the season isn't just boiled down to these 3 specific numbers. But yeah, I don't know. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, George Kittle did play 2 less games and had some injuries that kind of hampered him in a couple more. I don't want to use that as an excuse for why George Kittle didn't have the same numbers Travis Kelce did. And obviously, Travis Kelce has more receiving yards and the same number of touchdowns, so he should go ahead of him. Fuck that argument. I mean, on the field, watching these two, I mean, I hate having to choose between them because they are so fucking good at playing football.
Yes.
But George Kittle it was like someone possessed him when he was on the field. Just plus, playing so angry, so much energy, just doing absolutely everything. More of a blocker than Travis Kelce was this year, at least from the few games I saw. That's my argument.
I also think that no, not Travis Kelce. That George Kittle elevates his team a lot more than Travis Kelce does. Kelce, again, a phenomenal player who would be probably very, very good on every team. And it just so happens he plays with last year's MVP.
Yeah.
So that certainly helps in a pass-heavy offense. But
especially when you have guys like Tyreek Hill and Sammy Watkins who are just taking the top off the defense every play. Maybe not every play, but you know what I mean.
I do. So, there's reasons. But anyway, let's move on. I don't mean to take up this much time for everybody. Wide receivers, though, was a source of contention, so I'm going to chew up some time here, too. Number 1 was Michael Thomas. He received 50 votes. That's no goddamn surprise there. Following that, though, DeAndre Hopkins of Houston, 18. Julio Jones of Atlanta, 16. Chris Godwin of Tampa, 14. Kenny Golladay of Detroit with 1. Julian Edelman, really? With 1. So
those Boston Sports Times, just whatever newspaper is. Just got to get Julian Edelman in there, man.
I am just shocked that anyone would vote for Julian. I mean, and Kenny Galladay too, but Julian Edelman is he's just such an unimpressive wide receiver. And he's consistent, but not great. Anyway, DeAndre Hopkins getting in over Julio Jones, though, at least on Twitter today, was a source of much contention. Their difference between them is only 2 votes. Do you have any initial reaction to this before I read off some of their stats?
Yeah, I mean, I don't agree with it. I think DeAndre Hopkins, I mean, as a
Great
player, phenomenal wide receiver, always is going to be in the top 5 for me, if not top 3, in all of the NFL talent-wise. But I don't know how you could look at his season this year and say it was better than Chris Godwin and Julio Jones. In my mind, I think my vote would have been to go with Chris Godwin, even over Julio Jones. If you want to put Julio Jones in there over Chris Godwin, that's fine. It's like 2A, 2B to me. But I think DeAndre Hopkins is a clear step below that. And I don't know, like it's just the way it works out, the way this voting gets split up, but I definitely don't think he was worthy of being a first team All-Pro this year.
So let's get into the stats a little bit on this. This year, 2019, DeAndre Hopkins, 15 games on 15 starts. He had 150 targets for a 104 reception season. He had 11.2 yards per reception, and then some numbers we actually care about a little bit more. He had 1,165 yards. He had 7 touchdowns. And let's just go with yards per game. He had 77.7 yards per game, 69.3 catch percent. All right, we'll start with that. Let's look at yards, touchdowns, and yards per game. 1,165 yards, 7 touchdowns, yards per game, 77.2. Julio Jones, also 15 starts, so these stats will be comparable in terms of playing time approximately. He finished with just under 100 catches, 99 on 157 targets. Plays with a much worse quarterback. 1,394 yards, 14.1 yards per reception, 6 touchdowns, 92.9 yards per game, 63.1 catch percent. So that is 15 more yards per game than DeAndre Hopkins. 1 fewer touchdown and 200 more yards. I just
1 more fumble though, so that must have been, the straw that broke the camel's back.
Ooh,
Yeah.
yeah. Plus, let's not forget that Julio Jones here is only he had -3 rushing yards. I mean,
shit, really?
DeAndre had 18. That's 6 times as many. Or I guess -6 times as many. For reference, I also have Chris Godwin here. He played 14 games, so he is missing 1 game against the other 2. He had 121 targets, 86 receptions, 1,333 yards, which is really just under 60 yards fewer than Julio Jones. He had 9 touchdowns, which is the most out of this group. He has 95.2 yards per game, which is the most of this group, 71.1% catch percent, which would be the highest. Yeah, the highest. So I very much see your 2A, 2B comment here.
Yeah, I mean, I just want to emphasize DeAndre Hopkins had a tremendous season.
Yes.
But I just personally wouldn't put his play above Julio Jones or Chris Godwin. I mean,
this is like when we were arguing between Christian Yelich and
Cody Bellinger.
Great seasons. Yeah. Both great seasons. But someone has to be better, and I think they picked wrong.
Right. I mean, if you just want to look at receiving yards, Mike Thomas obviously was first by just so many. Julio Jones and Chris Godwin were 2 and 3. DeAndre Hopkins falls in at number 11. 10 if you exclude Travis Kelce because he's a tight end. So, I mean, I don't know. Like, it's hard because I don't want this to come across as like, oh, DeAndre Hopkins didn't have a good season, because he did. We all know he did. It's just he wasn't the top 2 wide receiver in the NFL.
Yeah, I find this to be a really, you know what might have happened here? I think your 2A, 2B thing's probably what happened here. Julio Jones and Chris Godwin probably split votes.
Yeah, that would make sense.
If you add those two together, that's 30 additional votes. So imagine if I told you Michael Thomas had 50 votes, and then the second place wide receiver, either Julio or Godwin, had 30, and then DeAndre came in here at 18 still.
Yep,
that makes sense, doesn't it?
It does.
Damn!
All we needed was the Julian Edelman and Kenny Golladay voter to just vote for Julio, or even Chris Godwin, but whatever, and it would have been a nice tie.
This is Rick Porcello winning the Cy Young all over again.
Yeah, goddamn.
The flex.
Tearing my heart up.
This position is where some of our other offensive controversy comes from. Christian McCaffrey also won the flex spot in addition to winning the running back winning, doesn't matter. With 18 votes, Derrick Henry came in second. There's a lot of names here. I'm not going to read all of them. Just read the top 5. Derrick Henry came in second from Tennessee with 7. Then Travis Kelce with 6. Julio Jones with 5. Aaron Jones from Green Bay with 3. I think that was 5. This is a weird group. Yeah. I don't understand how these names were chosen. How did Aaron Jones get more votes than Chris Godwin? How did Cooper Kupp get more votes than Chris Godwin? What's the role change that they're assuming with flex?
Aaron Jones, I can see. I mean, he led the league in touchdowns. He was second in rushing yards, I believe. I get that. I think he probably could have been in the conversation for running backs, at least second team. I don't know how Cooper Kupp got 3 votes in any world. He had by all means, a bad season. Just up and down, dealt with some injuries, just wasn't consistent enough to be, in my mind, even considered for an all-pro nod. I mean, if you don't want to put Chris Godwin at your flex because, Derrick Henry or Julio Jones is more deserving, sure, I get it. You can have that opinion. If you think Travis Kelce should get in because of how dominant he was at tight end, sure, I can believe that. The only thing I'm really, truly upset about is why the fuck they would still allow Christian McCaffrey to win this. Why should he be allowed? Like, why would they give it to Christian McCaffrey if he's already all-pro running back number 1?
This would be the equivalent, not even, because this is such a much more prestigious honor, getting the all-pro in the NFL. But like, could you imagine if DJ LeMahieu won Gold Glove at third base and second base? Like, no, you have to pick one. He doesn't get both. That's fucking stupid. Like, it's a one or the other. Like, he can't. Winning one should exclude you from winning again. Like, it'd be ridiculous if DJ LeMahieu won 2 Gold Gloves in the same season for 2 different positions.
Mm-hmm.
It's
so lazy.
It is. It's so fucking like, we get it. He's very good. We understand. He's very good. Pick someone else.
Like, I get how they did this. They just tallied up the votes. Since they, collected all the votes at once, you basically just had to write in Christian McCaffrey for running back 1. And then at flex, you wrote in, if you voted for Derrick Henry at running back 1, you would put Christian McCaffrey at flex. I don't know why you wouldn't then say, all right, when Christian McCaffrey wins, we strike him from all the votes at flex and take the next highest guy, or you just have a second vote.
Yeah,
it's not
that's
that
what
hard.
I was going to say. Pick. It's what everyone does. It's what the MVP voting is. At least in baseball, I assume it's the same in football. You get a first, second. You can vote 10, but for this shit, you only need 1, 2, or 3. But yeah, it's so easy. It's so basic.
You can do it like they do in baseball, where you rank 3 and then you get points based off of that, or you just have a secondary vote. This isn't 1963. We have email, we have the internet. You could do the vote in an hour if you have to do it quickly,
Yeah.
or it
Plus,
just
you don't
takes,
have to.
you
Sorry,
have
go
a
ahead.
24-hour window to fucking put in your secondary vote for flex. Who's gonna,
Sorry.
not have time to do that?
Additionally, it's only 18 people they need to reach out to because
Yeah.
conceivably the other 32 people, their votes are still as is. That
Yeah.
one guy who voted for Darren Waller of Oakland, whoever, I don't even know who that is. He
You don't
doesn't
know who Darren
matter.
Waller is?
I don't know. No.
Oh, he was drafted in 2015 as a wide receiver. This was his first year starting as a tight end. He was like third in tight end receiving yards, I think, or
Yeah,
second.
I don't know. I don't know who that is.
Yeah, it's
But
fine.
it's fucking weird, and we'll be circling back to something similar to this later, possibly. But for now, let's move on to stuff we have nothing to say about. Left tackle. Ronnie Stanley of Baltimore received 42 votes. It's so many more than everyone else. For the
Mhm.
sake of saying their names, or at least trying, David Bacchiardi from Green Bay, Teron Armstead from New Orleans, and Tyron Smith from Dallas all received 5 or fewer votes. I'm just gonna read all of the offensive line ones, and if you have anything to say about any of them, we can just talk about it. For right tackle, the winner of the first team All Pro was Ryan Ramczyk of New Orleans with 30 votes, followed by Michael Schwartz of Kansas City, Lane
Mitchell.
Johnson of Mitchell Schwartz, my bad, Kansas City, Lane Johnson of Philadelphia, Trent Brown of Oakland, Lael Collins of Dallas, and Brian O'Neill of Minnesota. They received vote numbers that don't matter. Left guard, Quentin Nelson of Indianapolis. He received 44 votes. It's so many more than everyone else. Joe Thuney of New England got 3. Joel Bitonio of Cleveland got 3 as well. Right guard, Zach Martin of Dallas got 24. Marshall Yanda of Baltimore got 16. Brandon Brooks of Philadelphia got 9. And David DeCastro of Pittsburgh got 1. And just to round it off, because I know you have something to say about Marshall Yanda. Jason Kelsey of Philadelphia got 29. He secured it. Rodney Hudson of Oakland got 9. Dallas Frederick of Dallas got less than that. Marquise Pouncey of Pittsburgh. Ben Jones of Tennessee. Mitch Morse of Buffalo. And Ryan Kelly of Indianapolis. Those are all of the vote getters and winners for the 2019 NFL All-Pro offensive line positions.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we should really dive deep into offensive line just because I know it's my weakest position to really scout and evaluate. I feel fairly confident saying it goes for you too.
Yes.
I mean, I would put Ronnie Stanley at 1, David Bakhtiari at 2 for left tackle. I'd put Mitchell Schwartz at 1 and Ryan Ramczyk at 2 for right tackle. Quentin Nelson, so far and away number 1 for me at left
God,
guard.
so much. Yes.
I love that man.
It's the one thing I know.
Yeah, I guess I'd put Joe Thuney at 2. For right guard, I would put David DeCastro 1 and Zach Martin at 2. Center, I would put Jason Kelsey 1 and Marquise Pouncey at 2. Do you have anything you want to add there? Any names you want to mention or comments you want to add?
Not in particular, honestly.
Yeah.
It's just a position I know so little about. Although you can definitely tell which teams are well positioned at offensive line based on their
Mhm.
appearances, despite maybe not winning as much. So, for instance, Dallas has a left tackle named. Their right tackle is named. Their right guard won, and their center was also named. The only position that they don't appear in is left guard. So Dallas in really good shape, which is not a surprise. That's why I picked them, because I knew they'd be easy to find. But this is definitely, I know you shouldn't always go by like awards and honors and shit for determining how good someone is, because you get weird shit like DeAndre Hopkins getting a first team All Pro when he didn't necessarily deserve it. But
Yeah.
for offensive line, that's one of the things I absolutely look at.
Mhm.
And so it's at least, this is a good litmus test for who's doing all right.
Yeah, I mean, Philadelphia's got multiple people on here.
Yeah.
Baltimore has multiple people.
Pittsburgh.
New Orleans, yeah, Pittsburgh has multiple people. New Orleans has multiple people. I don't see any that are anyone else, which is fine. I mean, it's one of those things where it's hard for, an average Joe to watch offensive line play and be able to see what you or be able to understand what you're seeing because so many teams do a lot of things differently. And it's not the exciting part of football for most people. Um, I basically look at pressures given up and things like that. Um, just because I'm a Steelers fan and this is what I watch every week, seeing, David DeCastro pull as a guard, I think, he's the second best in the NFL behind Quentin Nelson at doing that, especially this season. It's one of those things where I want to get better at it. It's just so hard when there's so much going on with football already, trying to evaluate 5 new positions every single game. So, it is what it is. They deserve more credit, but I definitely understand why they don't get that credit,
Yeah,
or at least that attention.
I understand. My thing with offensive lines, at least when I'm watching games, not so much for evaluating stats later on, is was there enough time for the offense to run the play they had in mind? And if not, was that because people got hit too early, or was it because the quarterback held on to the ball too early? And then if it's or too late, and I'll usually just go from there. So, if you end up running like a ton of screen passes because you're already getting touched 1 second afterwards, and not figuratively 1 second, literally 1 second, that's you don't have a lot of time to begin with, then, chances are you got a shitty O-line, or at least that was a shit play by your O-line. So it is what it is. You ready to get into the defensive side of the ball?
Yeah, I am.
Edge rusher, Chandler Jones of Arizona, 32 votes. TJ Watt of Pittsburgh, 22. Followed by Shaq Barrett of Tampa Bay, Cameron Jordan of New Orleans, Zadarius Smith of Green Bay, Daniel Hunter of Minnesota, Nick Bosa of San Francisco, Joey Bosa of Los Angeles.
Yeah, I think 1 and 2 here are pretty obvious. I don't think this is, there's much of anything outlandish here. I mean, Chandler Jones was still so quietly dominant in Arizona, leading the league in sacks. TJ Watt was, even as a Pittsburgh fan with all my bias, looks like the defensive player of the year. Just able to do everything on any given play. I love him so much. Shaquille Barrett at number 3, I think, is a little high. I know he had his breakout season this year, got a lot of sacks, but they kind of came in waves, and there were times where he was just really quiet, and that's just not really something I like to see in all pro players. You want to see that consistency. I personally would switch him with Zadarius Smith of Green Bay, who finished 5th. I think it's a shame he did not get an all-pro nod because of how dominant he was. But yeah, outside of that, I think edge rushers is pretty straightforward this year. There was so many good ones.
Yeah, I was wondering why Nick Bosa was so low. So I was looking up some of the stats on the other people, just because there's so many players in the NFL, you can't keep track of all their stats. And fuck, Nick Bosa had a great season, and so did everybody in front of him. God, this is a tough vote in my eyes to have to lay down.
Completely agree.
All right, interior lineman Aaron Donald, fucking shocker, 49. If you don't know what team he's from, I'm not telling you. Cam Hayward of Pittsburgh, 23. Grady Jarrett of Atlanta. DeForest Buckner of San Francisco. Chris Jones of Kansas City. Jordan Phillips of Buffalo. Vita Vea of Tampa Bay. Frank Clark of Kansas City. And Fletcher Cox of Philadelphia. What make you?
Okay. I think it's fantastic how even in, arguably his worst season in the past couple of years, Aaron Donald is 1 vote shy of a unanimous first-team All-Pro. It just goes to show how fucking dominant he is. I absolutely love to see Cam Hayward up there. He really deserves it. He is definitely one of those guys who just had an unstoppable year all year, just lived in the backfield of opposing teams. Very happy to see him there. Grady Jarrett, I'm kind of surprised to see at number 3, especially. Well, there's quite a bit of a drop off after Cam Hayward. DeForest Buckner probably would have been my number 3 guy with San Francisco. And then, there's a couple of Kansas City guys on here, which is pretty impressive. Overall, again, like with edge rushers, there's a lot of good players. But I think they got this one right.
What's amazing is Aaron Donald had 8 fewer sacks this year than he did last year, and 5 fewer tackles for loss than he had last year. And he still had 12 and a half sacks and 20 tackles for loss, and 20 led the league.
It's so nuts. He is on a different level than anyone else in the NFL when it comes to just playmaking ability. It's just incredible.
So I think this is funny. He also leads the league in safeties. He has 1. So I imagine everyone just has 1. So everyone with 1 leads the league.
No, he's the only person in the NFL to get a safety this year.
Yeah, you're damn right. I wonder what like the most safety gettingest season is. How many do you think that would be?
In my mind, I can't even think of anyone who's had more than 2, but I feel like 4 is probably the record, 3 or 4. If it's any more than that, I will be blown away. It's probably some nobody. Are you looking it up?
I'm trying to. Yeah. I might have it. It's 4. It's a tie. It's a 3-way tie between Doug English, Ted Hendricks, and Jared Allen.
Okay.
Yeah. Doug English, by the way, had 2 in one season. And guess what? Led the league that year.
Wait, he had 2 in one season, but is tied with 4 is all what?
Yeah, it's an all-time number was 4. It's almost like a do. Yeah.
Okay. Wow,
yeah, sorry,
that's actually pretty impressive.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that
really
2
funny.
in one season is like the record.
So he had one safety in 77, 1 safety in 79, and then 2 safeties in 83. And he led the league in safeties in 83 with 2. He led the league in safeties in 79 with 1 because, ties. Did not lead the league in 77. And now I'm just desperate to know who did. Ted Hendricks had 4 throughout 4 different years. And Jared Allen had 4. Oh, he also had a 2 safety season in Minnesota in 2008.
Jared Allen is one of my all-time favorite characters in the NFL.
Jared Allen looks like a bigger Drew Brees in the face.
First of all, he actually, now that I think about it, that's accurate. That is definitely accurate. I love that he always wore the number 69. Those are always the most fun players on the field. And he drove a 1960s bright pink Cadillac with a set of Longhorns on the front.
That's delicious.
Definitely look up a picture of it. I saw it on MTV Cribs back in the day. He is such a fun player.
I can only see 4 active players on this list. They're all tied with 2. Cameron Wake, Calais Campbell, Leonard Floyd, and Justin Houston. I'm going to need all of them to get 2 more safeties. You think the safety is like the rarest feat for a player in sports? Because think about it, like this guy, Doug English, played for 10 years. Actually, do you one better? Ted Hendricks played for 14 years for 3 teams, and in his whole career has 4 safeties. That's rare.
Like perfect games are still more rare, stuff like that. Just because of like a safety, there only needs to be 1 play for it to happen. You need to get 27 outs to get a perfect game,
Yeah, I do think that's different though. I agree with what you're saying in principle, but like the act of getting an out isn't rare. What makes it rare is the act of stringing them all together. And the act here is what makes it rare because you don't it's not about stringing together safeties. It's about getting just the one. You know what I'm saying? It's an individualized act. And I what else is like that in sports? Because hitting a home run's common. It's not super common. Like over the course of, I don't know, you play, let's say 145 games as a ball player.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you'll if you could hit 20, which isn't a lot. It's one every 7 games, but like it is a lot because it happens a lot.
Maybe like a full court buzzer beater in basketball. Like the timing is similar to a safety where like it's a very specific scenario. I don't know. I
It's
really don't
tough,
know.
right?
Yeah.
Because the problem
definitely
with the
unique.
buzzer beater is that it's not recorded as being anything special, whereas the safety is recorded as like this. That's interesting. I don't because there's definitely nothing in hockey. All you can do is get an assist or get a goal.
Mhm.
There's nothing really fancy to keep track of with that. There's
Especially
nothing.
since it's such a unique point total that it's hard to compare that with any other sport because of the way scoring works in any other sport.
Do you know who the safety gets assigned to if it's holding in the end zone on the offensive line?
I think it's just a team safety.
Okay. Huh. That's interesting.
Or it might be the held player, and it might be the closest defender to the quarterback. There's a lot of
Okay.
I wanna do some research while we go into some other stuff because now I gotta know.
Yeah. I've taken us down a rabbit hole, and I'm sorry, but I'm not all that sorry about it. While you're doing that, I'm going to read out the top 5 vote getters. There's a lot of linebackers who got votes because there's a lot of good linebackers and a lot of votes. So again, only going to read the top 5. Bobby Wagner of Seattle, he got 32 votes. Demario Davis of New Orleans with 18. Eddie Kendricks of Minnesota also with 18. Luke Kuechly of Carolina with 17. And Darius Leonard of Indianapolis with 11. I will also read this one name just to make Corwin happy. TJ Watt of Pittsburgh also with 11.
Yeah, all right.
That was 6,
Thank
but yeah, I got you, buddy. What do you think?
It's one of those things where after Bobby Wagner, who probably should have been unanimous, but I get why he isn't. There's just so many linebackers. It's nuts. I mean, Demario Davis had an excellent year. I'm happy he got it. There's just so many players here that are deserving of it. You know,
Yeah,
like
comparing stats just genuinely isn't even worth it. Like if I read down this list,
mhm.
as a guy who's not the greatest with depth, these are all players I know. Like every single one of them. It's just a ridiculous pool of players.
Yeah, I mean, especially since positions changed, like Bobby Wagner and TJ Watt played 2 extremely different positions at linebacker in 2 very different systems. Um, it's really just so hard. Like this, I want to say is the hardest position to really nail down. Like offensive line is hard because it's hard to evaluate, but at least they're all playing the same position. There's at least 4 different positions, 4 or 5 different positions that you could choose from that are linebackers. You have a 3-4 outside linebacker, 3-4 inside linebacker, and then a 4-3 Mike, Sam, and Will. And I'm sure there's, you know, defenses out there, defensive schemes that have more complicated versions than that, but fuck those people first off. It
Hard and fast.
hard and fast. But yeah, I mean, I can't even say I have any complaints here or like have any one specific player that is more deserving of this than Wagner and Demario Davis. If you want to, like, I don't know, lump him in there.
I'm so mad the Jets didn't keep Demario Davis when they had the chance.
Yeah,
I think about it. I thought it was a mistake when it happened. And, Anyway, cornerbacks. The vote getters are first Stephon Gilmore of New England with 50. Tre'Davious White with Buffalo, 38. Richard Sherman of San Francisco with 10. Marcus Peters of Baltimore with 1. And Marshawn Lattimore of New Orleans with 1.
Yeah, again, Stephon Gilmore definitely is unanimous here. Tre'Davious White is, in my mind, clearly the number 2. I'm glad Richard Sherman got the 10 votes, and I guess this is just one of those things that we have to talk about being just kind of bullshit. Marcus Peters got a single vote out of 50, and that was enough to get him a second team All-Pro selection. Which fucking insane to me.
Yeah.
Like, especially since he tied with Marshawn Lattimore and Marcus Peters was the one to get the second team nod.
That's the thing. I don't know how they do that with the ties.
I don't really think they have a great system in place there.
This really feels like the laziest way to do it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. It's just so beyond lazy because you're not like, it's one thing if it was just lazy, but they got it right. This is lazy and unfair to anyone below Stephon Gilmore and Tre'Davious White, especially at any position where it's just fucking arbitrary. I hate these kind of things. Arbitrary decisions for voting is just, it's so unbelievably unfair, and it shouldn't be an issue. It's not an issue really in any other sport because they do ranked voting. I don't know that. I'm just assuming everything else is smart like baseball.
Yeah, because they could do it either the way we talked about the MLB does it with like MVP and Cy Young voting and all their other, or they can even do it the way that the NFL or the MLB does Hall of Fame voting, where because like why stop at 50? Like the MLB sends out their Hall of Fame ballot to like a few hundred baseball writers. Like it's a lot, and they do it by percent. And you just have to you get into the Hall of Fame if you get over 75% of the vote. And like they could just like pick percentage wise who gets the most like names on the ballot or some shit like that. Like the point being, there's just better ways. There's just better ways than having 50 dudes just write some names down and fuck ties and let the same player win the flex as their other position and let that happen again for the second team. Like it's fucking stupid.
I agree. So I feel like the only way we could really show Marcus Peters and I guess Marshawn Lattimore the amount of love they deserve is just to move on from them completely.
Yeah. Let's talk about something that I care a lot more about. Safeties.
This is one we can both care a lot about.
Yeah. Jamal Adams of New York, first place vote getter here, 28 of them. Minka Fitzpatrick, a distant second from Pittsburgh with 27. Justin Simmons of Denver with 9. Tyrann Mathieu of Kansas City with 8. Harrison Smith of Minnesota with 7. Kevin Bird of Bayard of Tennessee with 7. That's all I'm going to read because there's a few more names I just don't care about. What make you of this, good buddy?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of don't like that they break up safety they just kind of lump in strong and free safety together.
Right.
But I really like that a strong and free safety got first team All-Pro first and second team All-Pro with almost identical votes. I think that's kind of cool. Jamal Adams was a monster this season. Minka Fitzpatrick was a monster this season. Everyone else, just fuck them. I mean, Tyrann Mathieu had a great season. Justin Simmons had a great season. Harrison Smith always has a great season, but they were several tiers below what Adams and Fitzpatrick were able to do. The only other thing I want to add is Terrell Edmonds of the Steelers got a vote, which is the most insanely bullshit thing I've ever seen. Almost as crazy as him being a first round pick.
So, I just looked up second team All-Pro.
Mm-hmm.
And safeties isn't what I was expecting. I just want to see if everything else is what I was expecting. Did Justin Simmons get the third most votes?
Yeah.
Oh, he did. All right, then never mind. It was right. Okay.
Yeah, I had that confusion with linebackers and TJ Watt earlier.
Yeah, I was throwing myself off for no good reason. Because I wanted to see if Marshawn Lattimore would have made an appearance on the second team, even though that would have been 3 cornerbacks because of the tie, and he wasn't, which is still so fucking stupid. Anyway, yeah, it's really cool seeing this be the voting. Jamal Adams and Minkah Fitzpatrick play 2 rather different forms of safety. Jamal Adams came decently close to not breaking, but coming near what the sack record is for safeties. Minkah Fitzpatrick played like a goddamn animal in coverage this year. I think he led the league with forced fumbles or some shit. Like he for his position anyway. He did a really, really great stuff in coverage. Jamal Adams also played well in coverage, and I'm sure Minkah Fitzpatrick also played well, venturing more onto the line because they're both just very good ball players. And, that's what they do. So, nothing to be upset about here. Two great players. The defensive back category. Again, I'm only going to read 5 names because there's a lot. Marcus Peters from Baltimore got 7 votes. Marlon Humphrey from Baltimore got 7 votes. Tyrann Mathieu of Kansas City got 7 votes. Richard Sherman, San Francisco with 5, and Minkah Fitzpatrick of Pittsburgh, who we just mentioned, with 4.
Defensive back, I don't love it in practice. I like it in theory, like being able to include more players because of how many different defensive systems are used and different personnel, whether it's nickel, dime, whatever it may be. It doesn't work with the way we have the voting set up. Like Marcus Peters being second team All-Pro at cornerback, but first team as defensive back, tied with Tyrann Mathieu and Marlon Humphrey. Now they include ties when it's tied for first. I don't understand why they don't have a very simple solution in place to fix this kind of shit.
Especially because this matters a lot for contract negotiations.
100%.
If your career is long enough, Hall of Fame consideration.
Yep. I mean, there's a lot, a part of this about why this shouldn't be such an issue. Like, if this was like, I get that the Pro Bowl is kind of broken the way it's set up now, which is what it is. All Pro is what, even you and I look at when we discuss past players. We look at All Pro first. And the fact that Marcus Peters, Marlon Humphrey, and Tyrann Mathieu got more votes than Richard Sherman and Minkah Fitzpatrick is insane. I don't get how Tyrann Mathieu could have more votes as defensive back than Minkah Fitzpatrick could, despite Minkah Fitzpatrick having more votes at an actual position. I mean, I get how it works in practice, but in theory, it shouldn't work like that. And it's just one of my pet peeves that drives me nuts since they've implemented this.
Yeah, it's just a fucking bizarre ass system
that
makes almost no one happy. Except I guess the person has to tally these votes.
Peters. I think Marcus Peters is happy because he just got 2 All-Pro nods in 2 different positions. So
yeah, but he's jerking it really hard tonight.
Yeah.
Special teams. Well, I guess real quick, anything to say about the defense here?
Nope.
All right, cool. Place kicker Justin Tucker of Baltimore with 34. Josh Lambo of Jacksonville, I forgot he was on that team, 11. Will Lutz of New Orleans with 3. Harrison Butker of Kansas City with 2.
I don't know how Justin Tucker didn't win this unanimously for like the 6th year in a row.
Yeah, it's just not even a fucking contest. There's not even a point. I'm moving on to punter.
Yeah, please.
Brett Kern of Tennessee with 34 has the most votes, followed by Tress Way of Washington. That's a hilarious name. Brian Anger, even better, from Houston with 2. Logan Cook of Jacksonville with 1. Well, I guess Jacksonville can at least say that they kicked well this season.
Yeah. I do got to say I feel very ashamed that I don't recognize a single one of these names.
Brian Anger sounds familiar, probably because I've laughed at his name before. The idea that there's a man out there whose first name is Tress is hilarious. I can't. I definitely haven't heard of it before because I would remember that. But yeah, I don't know. Do you follow punters much?
I mean, I know the big ones. Like I know Pat McAfee when he played. I know
Oh.
Thomas Morstead. I know
Hold on. Tress is a nickname. Do you want to guess what his full name is?
Trey Anthony.
Tressler.
That's so worse.
Tressler William Way. Oh.
I'm going to. Can I guess? Is he from the state of Connecticut?
No, that was my first guess too. Why was that both of our first guesses?
Because
From
it's
Oklahoma.
such like an upper class white boy name.
Oh God, it
Tressler.
feels like it. Yeah, 100% feels like it. That's so
Dan,
funny. My first thought was Connecticut too.
Roommate Dan, if you still listen to this, fuck Connecticut.
Yo, fuck Connecticut. Indecisive ass state. Tressler. Named his kid Tressler. Fucking moving on. Kick returner. Cordarrelle Patterson with Chicago. This has got to be his fifth team. Mecole Hardman of Kansas City with 4. Deontay Harris of New Orleans with 2. Jamal Agnew of Detroit with 2. Brandon Wilson of Cincinnati with 2. And Andre Roberts. Oh, Andre Roberts of Buffalo with 1. I remember Andre Roberts. He played for the Jets last year. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Cordarrelle Patterson is like, I think he might approach like Devin Hester territory by the end of his career of like the guy who's just so far and away the best returner in football. I don't think he'll reach Devin Hester. Like, should we talk about him being in the Hall of Fame type talk? But he is so far and away the best returner. Mecole Hardman had a great year as a rookie. He would have been my number 2 pick, and I don't really care about any of these other guys. I know Jamal Agnew won it like last year, but whatever.
I believe actually last year was punt returner was Andre Roberts because I know he did win for us recently.
Yeah, I know Agnew won it just because I saw he had an All-Pro nod on Pro Football Reference or All-Pro nod, and I was just so confused because I had never heard of this man before. But yeah, it's a special teams thing.
So is Cordarrelle Patterson just only good?
Yes.
At rushing at returns, it just feels like such a weird because this is his 4th team. Minnesota for 4 years, Oakland, New England, and now Chicago. Yeah, it's just ugly.
Mm-hmm. He actually wasn't too bad filling in at running back. I think this year, maybe last year, whenever injuries kicked in for Chicago. But yeah, he definitely is not living up to the first round hype he had. I want to say he got drafted by Minnesota.
He did.
Okay.
So real quick, Cordarrelle Patterson's yards per game career is 17.6. That's very bad. Do you think Devin Hester's yards per game is higher or lower?
I'm gonna say lower. Nah, I'll say higher. I'll say it's higher. It's gonna be hard to be lower.
Do you want to venture a guess to the number?
I'll say like 23. Just
21.2.
All right.
Yeah.
I'm glad I changed my answer.
These two guys are only good at these things.
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be fair, it's not like they attempt to use them as actual receivers anymore. Like I know they used to with Cordarrelle Patterson, but like it's definitely been a while since it's been an actual attempt.
Yes, it has. Yeah, you're right about that. All right, last 2 categories. We have punt returner. The winner was Deontay Harris of New Orleans with 29, followed by Deontay Johnson of Pittsburgh with 12, followed by Deontay Hines. No, Nyheim Hines. That can't be his real name.
Nyheim Hines.
That makes so much more sense. Nyheim Hines of Indianapolis with 4, Andre Roberts of Buffalo with 2, Mecole Hardman of Kansas City with 1, and Braxton Berrios of the New York Jets with 1. I do not care about this category.
Didn't you pick up Braxton Berrios like mid-season?
No.
Really?
Really?
Oh, was it last year?
No.
I know he got drafted by New England. I think he got waived and picked up by like New Orleans. And I guess you guys picked him up in the offseason?
Sure.
Yeah, all right, whatever. It's very much not important. Yeah, I mean, I don't have much to say on Deontay Harris just because I don't watch a ton of New Orleans. Deontay Johnson, though, I'm very happy to see on there. I think he's going to be in contention to win it next year because he was very electric this year. But yeah, that's all I really got to say about that.
All right. Well, now we come to the most important category. They save it best for last, kind of like the Oscars does with Best Picture. Keep you on your toes.
And you better believe I got some shit to say about this one.
It's the most important category on the ballot. Special teamer. I don't even know. I wanted to make up some bullshit, but honestly, it would sound too real because it makes more sense as to what I was going to say. This is for the best teammate on the field, but that sounds more real than what this actually is, which is just the best guy who plays on special teams.
Yeah.
Because if you asked me to pick, if I didn't know, if I'm just a random guy on the street, hey, special teamer, the All Pro winner for special teamer, do you think that means best representation of a teammate or best guy who just plays on special teams? I'll go, oh, well, that second one is outlandishly stupid. It's got to be the first one because the second one just sounds dumb. It's the second one. Matthew Slater of New England won it with 37 votes, which means he was overwhelmingly the best, I guess. Followed by JT Gray of New Orleans with 3, Cordell Patterson of Chicago with 3, Derek Watt of Los Angeles Chargers with 2. I'm not reading the rest.
Well, here I am on the hill I will die on.
Tell me.
Matthew Slater won this for name recognition only because he's always the all-pro special teamer of the year. And I genuinely think people just stopped paying attention or don't even give a shit about looking into any stats on this. And they just know, hey, Matthew Slater's like really, really, really good at doing this. Let's just give him the votes because we know who he is. And not look at the fact that Tyler Matakevich of Pittsburgh, with only 1 vote, led the NFL in special teams tackles, was an absolute maniac on special teams this year, and absolutely deserved all-pro recognition because of it.
And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen, the most meaningless hill stand-up.
Yeah, you're damn right.
So the one final thing I would is there anything you have to say overall about the All Pro this year?
Fix your fucking voting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else?
No,
all right. The one thing I would like to also mention is that this has also been a discussion point for Richard Sherman. Since he did receive a second team All Pro selection, he gained $4 million pay this year. He based on the incentive structure of his contract, and Richard Sherman signed this contract under heavy scrutiny because he represented himself, and he made it a very incentive heavy contract, not a ton of base salary. Most of it would be coming from incentives, and so with this $4 million he got, plus if he gets plus $1 million for the Pro Bowl, $1 million for 90% of snaps played, and $2 million for the $2 million for the All Pro team. That makes it a total of $4 million based on incentives, which brings this year's salary for him up to just about $13 million. That's not bad.
That's not bad.
Granted, it's not superstar great either, but that's not fucking bad for an aging cornerback.
Oh yeah, I mean he's in his 30s now. I still think it was a bad contract to sign, representing yourself and leaving it all up to, I don't want to say chance because it's not. I mean he is definitely betting on himself, but I don't love having a 30-year-old's contract be so heavily based off of incentives, especially when those incentives are bullshit voting based. But yeah, you gotta love that a guy's going out there being able to represent himself, bet on himself, and succeed the way Richard Sherman did this year. I love Richard Sherman as a player, as an advocate. just what he is as a person, as a player, on and off the field. So I'm very happy to see him still succeed.
Yeah, I have to agree with you on pretty much every front. If I was a person in Richard Sherman's shoes, I'd probably be way too much of a pussy to to not have an agent. So the fact that he did all this without it is really fucking cool. And it's always nice to see a player succeed doing the thing that they wanted to be doing. One thing to also mention, it's a pretty small side note, but he also did not have to pay an agent fee.
Yeah.
And I believe that caps out at 5%. At least that's what it is in football.
This is
that the
football,
same?
so yeah.
Oh, sorry, baseball. Sorry.
Yeah, I think I don't know if it caps at 5%, but it's usually around there.
So
like
that
3 to
also
5%.
all right. I'm just going to call it 5 because I already did the math. I don't know what to do. That 5% saves Richard Sherman $650,000.
That's not chump change.
No,
that's a whole lot of money.
Yeah, that's more than a minor league or a rookie contract in baseball will pay you.
Yeah,
that's a lot of money.
That's a lot
Yeah.
more than a minor league contract will pay you in baseball.
Yes. Oh, in baseball, yeah. No, ShopRite pays you more than a minor league contract in baseball.
So one last thing on Richard Sherman. Would you have him as a first ballot Hall of Famer?
Ooh, that's a really good question.
Because as we were talking about this, I was thinking about it. I think I would. I think I would put Richard Sherman as a first ballot Hall of Famer. Whatever that may be.
Let me look up his stats. I haven't looked at his stats page in fucking forever. That's actually, that's a very interesting question because he's got so he's 5-time Pro Bowl, 3-time All Pro. 3-time first team All Pro because Pro Football Reference only keeps track of the first teams.
And this will be added upon this year. I don't think it's updated yet.
Yeah, no, well, this is a second team.
Oh, right.
Yeah. So to add in some of those on your own time, plus the one-time Super Bowl champ. Let's see. What would be a good thing to look at here? Unfortunately, the advanced stats only go back to last season, so that's not exactly very helpful in this instance. But
so
let's see.
Pro Football
35 interceptions. His career yardage allowed is 460 yards. That's fucking nuts. Oh my god.
His career, he's only given up 460 yards. What?
Oh no, sorry.
That's
interception yards. Oh my god, that makes so much more sense.
I was gonna say, holy fuck, there's no way that can be accurate.
Yeah, oh my god. All right. I was gonna say, Jesus.
Let me
let's look at Darrelle Revis here. Because he's also a modern example of what this kind of player is going to be.
So just for reference, his most accurate similarity score for players, which is something that Pro Football Reference does, is Herb Adderley, who is a Hall of Fame player. So if that does anything for you there it is.
Richard Sherman has 35 interceptions. He 466 combined tackles, 2 sacks, 5 forced fumbles, 6 fumble recoveries. Sorry, and a 101 average, not average value. I always do that. Approximate value, which we can use as a little catch-all stat here. Darrelle Revis. 29 interceptions, 4 forced fumbles, 12 fumble recoveries, 496 combined tackles, and a 106 approximate value. So I've always operated under the assumption that Darrelle Revis will eventually be a first ballot Hall of Famer when his time comes for that. Just because he was just so fucking dominant his whole time through the first 7 years of his career. And Richard Sherman's just right fucking there. It's hard to believe he won't be at this point. They both have the one Super Bowl champ win. Richard Sherman has 2 fewer Pro Bowls and 1 fewer All Pro, but like that's not a big deal. So Yeah.
One fewer first team All-Pro.
Yes, one fewer first team All-Pro. So yeah, I don't know. I think that's a pretty. I've never considered it, but I think you're right.
Yeah, I mean, I don't see him retiring in the next couple of years. I think he's still got, I don't know, 2 or 3 years left in him. Just, I really see him as being that kind of guy that sticks it out until the very last second possible. So in a few years, when he's up on the ballot for the first time, I think we'll have this discussion again. And, honestly, I hope he does get in first ballot, because I think, again, like the kind of player he is on and off the field, it's what he deserves.
Yeah, he's a great dude. Great dude. And I'm sure he'll be involved in the football community for the rest of his life after football ends. He's always been such a big players guy and really easy guy to root for.
I agree.
All right, well, let's get out of here, shall we?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, if you want to follow the show on Twitter, you can do so at JuicingPod. If you want to hit us up via email, you can do so at juicingthenumbers@gmail.com. And until Thursday, y'all have a good one.
Bye.